So I am no relationship expert by any means. However, if you were to ask my partner of how I show up in a relationship, I would actually say they'd back me up, to be completely honest. And I've read so many different books on relationships. I've listened to hours and hours of relationships, and I've applied what I have learned to relationships in my relationships over the last 5 years. And I have gone from someone who has been quite bad at a relationship to who I believe is someone who is quite capable. And my advice in my communities and my personal development programs is working. I wanted you to know specifically what pieces of advice that we should actually listen to in regards to when it comes to relationships. Because we know what it's like. You get that whirlwind of, oh my goodness, this relationship's going to be fantastic, and the sex is great, and the dates are great, and the vibes are excellent, and then there's a couple of little road bumps and you get over those, and then by the time that everything sort of fades out and it's just you and the other person, you could be a year, 2, 3 years into the relationship, and then you start realizing, I don't even really know this person and they're not really a good match for me. This is really awkward now. Specifically because there were some things that weren't in place. So I'm going to run you through how this actually works. And a really good piece of advice to take that comes with my first piece of advice is, don't get into a relationship. And why? People get into relationships due to obligations and the fear of having to put in effort to find someone again, which also keeps them in the relationship. And getting into the relationship, it sort of feels like you're catching a wave of duty, which keeps you compelled to give your all to the person, try your best, not feel lonely, put pressure on yourself, and try to avoid certain situations or scenarios because they aren't the right things to talk about. So why not get into a relationship? Well, until you completely understand out who you are exactly, who you are now, and who you're going to be in the future, what partner you would like now and what partner you would like to grow with in the future, then there's no point getting into a long-term relationship, as there's going to be a lot of risks along the way. And don't worry if you are in a relationship or you've rushed a little bit and you learn these things. This is opening up the dialogue for you to have the conversations to make sure that these are happening so you can work together with it and work together throughout it. So basically, for all people, it's to raise your minimum standards and keep those minimum standards locked in. And one way to call in your best partner and have the best relationship is to speak on the phone first. I don't know why everyone has lost this art of talking on the phone all the time. Before you date or catch up or talk with anyone, you should be speaking on the phone regularly with, if you're testing multiple people and you're trying to find like the one, it's like, we'll jump on phone calls with people. I was going to say sales calls. Jump on with phone calls with people regularly to get to know them, ask them the questions, see if they're going to be a good fit for you before you meet them in person and get that emotional attachment. Because once that emotional attachment comes, then that's that fear of, oh, I'm going to have to find again, or I don't want to be hurt, or there's going to be parts of myself that are vulnerable. And what if I don't find anyone else the same? And oh my goodness, I'm pathetic and I'm never going to find anybody. You can completely stop that with just a phone call. And that's a little bit of getting out of your comfort zone straight away. Hey, maybe we should set up a phone call sometime. I'd love to chat to you, before meeting up in person, not even understanding the person's voice. So to summarize that, it's protecting yourself, knowing yourself, so that when you're in the relationship, you can know exactly what to talk about. You know your boundaries and your standards. You know what you're capable of, and you know what you bring to the table as a partner. So the other person can bring them full selves as a partner as well, enabling both of you guys to hold each other to a higher standard and keep each other accountable when one falls down. And when you really know who the person is and you know who you are, and they're not being themselves and they're not growing how they'd like to grow, then it's your responsibility to help them get them back up. And it's the same thing. It's their responsibility to also help you get back up. But over a period of time, if it takes way too long and the love sort of losses over those awkward moments, then it's up for you guys to have a conversation to talk about what's going to happen and actually talk about the relationship, which leads on to my second piece of advice, which is there are 3 entities of your relationship. There's you, there's your partner, and then there's the relationship itself. And it's really awesome because you can talk about those 3 things separately. Where communication fails is where people blame each other and they want to talk about you when really they want to talk about the relationship. And if instead of they took away the blame and making the person out to be a victim or make it feel like it's their fault and them feeling guilty, and then the forgiveness and the yo-yo effect of, oh my goodness, this relationship is so good, or I hate it so much, or this relationship is so good, I hate it so much, and having that yo-yo effect, is to have those conversations. And you can have a conversation around those things saying, this is how the relationship is right now. I'm not happy with this. I'm utterly unsatisfied with this. The relationship is not meeting my needs for X, Y, Z. The relationship is not helping me grow in the level that I'd like to grow in. I'm feeling unsafe currently in this relationship. I feel like the love is lost in this relationship. I feel like I'm not getting any respect in the container of the relationship. It has nothing to do with you. It's got to do with the relationship. And if you guys take the responsibility onto the relationship, then that creates an obligation for both of you to then work on the relationship instead of blaming the other person. So when you talk about the relationship, it's like you're responsible, but I'm also responsible as well, because it takes two of us to make the relationship. You follow your own paths, career, and your dreams, and I completely support that. I'm following my own paths, dreams, and career, and I expect that you're going to completely support that. And this is our relationships, path, career, and dreams, and how we'd like this to roll, and we both support that together. So that's sort of the mindset that really helps the relationship. And if this isn't communicated well in the relationship, or is understood that its relationship is its own thing and yous are both also individuals, then it makes it really easy for the relationship to just fall apart, blame each other, and then take responsibility for everything and everything and everything, putting too much pressure on yourself, then either people pleasing or withdrawing and having conversations where things are blowing up or not talking to each other and just sweeping everything underneath the rug and then pretending like everything's okay, and then something, cracks or snips a little bit and then boom, it all blows up. Which sort of leads to my next point, which comes around to communication and sweeping things under the rug, and it's called closing the loop. So in majority of relationships, there are conversations that are consistently happening and people bicker and people put things, again, under the rug. There was something that someone said at breakfast this morning and you didn't really like what they said or didn't like how they approached, and it really got to you. And then when you started thinking about it, all these other things started getting to you. Why did the person say this? Maybe they don't even like me anymore. Why am I even in this relationship at the moment? Like, this all seems really too hard, and how dare they talk to me like that? Like I actually deserve better, and all this entitlement and all these other things come up purely because of one negative comment said at breakfast. And if this issue isn't addressed and it's just put away, then it's going to fester and fester and fester, and it's going to build resentment. And the more resentment is built up, it's going to build up brick by brick like a wall. And then neither of you are going to be able to climb over it. And one of you is going to have to try and tear it down. But if it's too big and it's too strong, no one's going to be able to ever tear it down. And that's where emotions and emotional intelligence and emotional connection sort of dissipates. And that's when you feel like, this relationship isn't exactly working the way I used to. Especially if the issue is something along the lines of, hey, I'd love to do, 6 months travel next year and I've got this thing. And then your partner is like, I'm not happy with that. And it's like, ooh, well, let's talk about this later. Wow. Or there's this career and I've got this job opportunity in a different state and I'd love to go here and I want you to move with me. And the other person's like, I'm not moving. Or the general conversation, I want kids at this time. I do not want kids at that time. Well, we'll just see how it goes. What's it going to be like? Instead of actually having the conversation and coming up and talking about it specifically and realistically and mapping timelines out, and either coming to a compromise, or if you're both too stubborn, having a talk about the relationship. What's it going to look like if it ends? And are we actually willing to put in the hard yards to make this together? And I promise you, every time that you start putting bricks up and you both take the bricks from the wall away together, that is when you're closing the loop, and it's going to build stronger connection between both of you. So how do you apply this methodology of closing the loop? So when there's a conversation or something that's been swept under the rug, it's addressing it then and there immediately, and either rescheduling in a different conversation. Hey, just letting you know, this thing's really frustrating me. I've got these things in my mind and we need to have a conversation. If you have to book it into your calendar, book it into your calendar. If you've got to sit down at a certain time, tomorrow breakfast, we're going to talk about this again, or this afternoon, at dinner time, not before we go to bed, because talking late before going to bed, having relationship conversations in bed before you go to sleep, I think is a terrible idea. However, if you're doing it beforehand, it can be really handy. Closing the loop and closing the threads on the conversations that need to be had, and having the courage and being willing to talk about them to your partner. Hey, there was this thread that I've been thinking about. It's been the worst and I need to close it. I personally put notes in my phone, resave them till later. I write out big letters and then I turn them down to dot points when I need to, and I address them. Which also leads in to my next point. So what is happening internally reflects externally on our relationship always. Whenever you're feeling the stress of life, or you're uncertain about life, or something's getting you down, it makes it so easy for you to project those things into your relationship, which is why relationships are great containers for healing. So in regards to that, what is meant by this point is when you sort yourself out and you work on yourself and you're making sure that your mental health is good and your physical health is good and that you've got clear direction on your life and that you understand that your finances are sorted and you've got ample amounts of energy and your career is looking promising and you're making really good moves, right, which is the standard, and you have a really good routine, it makes it so much easier to show up as the best partner ever. And it's just those basic things put in line. Most people I find that could get on top of these things by just getting a coach, either a personal development coach, a health and fitness coach, a business coach, finance coach, or someone that's going to help them to move forward. I mean, if you're interested, I offer a lot of coaching specifically for this, for men and women, and I've got a community of high-performing men who are absolutely getting after it, finding what they're truly capable of, and having huge success stories called Set the Standard Community. You can head to my website, getstartedwithcorey.com if you want to see more. But besides that, the main point is working on yourself allows you to elevate in a relationship and show up as a better person, and to know that every single time that you're getting down and you reflect that onto your partners, that's when you start comparing. Oh my goodness, are they better than me? Oh, do I have to level up? Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I'm going to let them down. Will they love me if I'm not going to be doing like this good thing? Will they love me if I've lost a bit of, if I stack on a bit of weight? Will they love me if I'm not successful? Will they love me if I can't respect myself or if I stuff up? So you have all these unconscious questions which sort of just rock up into our mind, which makes us feel unsafe. So make yourself safe first, always. And if you notice that if you attach yourself to the relationship and you hold your identity and your happiness and everything with that, is you're unconsciously going to push that person away because you've lost your sense of self. This is why commonly I see women leave their male partners all the time. Even though they've got a good business, they work really hard, they're making money, they're trying to have a good impact, but they're hustling so much specifically for her, to make her have the best life and for her to have everything that she ever needs. And they could be doing or working in a career or a job that they don't even like, but they know that she respects it. So they will die trying to succeed as best as they could purely to make her happy. Now that is living an unintegral, unauthentic life. She's going to sniff that out immediately and leave you. Happens all the time. So in regards to that, it's okay to tell them that you've been feeling guilty about not being attracted to your partner, and that gives them a chance to improve. I would want to know every single time that I am not attracting, that I'm not being attractive, that I'm not setting a standard, that I'm not living up to my own standards, so that I can work on it. Because if I am unknown and I keep going down that path and I don't get pulled into line, then that's self-sabotage in the relationship, and it's both parties' responsibility. It's also okay to have different expectations of one another as long as they're communicated. And it's okay to be the person that puts in more effort occasionally. Like, you're allowed to put in more effort. Like, that's so okay. But it's not okay to not talk about those things. So know this one fact and this complete simple truth. The more willing you are to let go of the relationship, the closer and stronger the relationship will be. And this is because we fear so much about having to feel the emotions that would come with a potential breakup. When I believe if you're dancing on the edge between feeling all the emotions of a breakup and in your relationship and being able to communicate those things on the spot, is that brings you guys so much closer together. Because if you're willing to be her and you communicate, I'm not sure if this is what I actually want in a relationship. I'm not sure if this future predictions are going to be the best things for me. I'm not sure how I'm feeling about the relationship right now. There are some things that are going on right now which are making me feel uncertain. So let's talk about them because I want to feel close to you. And then what are those things that make you feel safe or not? Now, wouldn't you agree that if you communicated like that consistently in a relationship and you're talking about what you want in the relationship, potential realities of what could or could not happen, that it's going to bring you guys closer and you know exactly what the other person needs and wants. And then you get to communicate exactly what you need and want, and then you get to put them together instead of avoiding the scenarios, avoiding the whole potential reality of, oh, we will never break up, so let's never talk about anything that we actually want, which is just complete self-sabotage. So all this comes down to having the hard conversations and giving you and your partner the chance to feel hurt, but also the chance to heal together and grow together, which creates a stronger bond. Because if we don't, again, we can build resentment up brick by brick, which creates an impossible wall for us to climb over. So in order to tear that brick wall down, we avoid from building it at all by just communicating our needs. So I hope you guys got something out of this YouTube video. If you like it, please share it. Please subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, Corey Boutwell. I have a podcast, Corey Boutwell Podcast. Remember, the Corey is with an E, guys. Big love. And if you have any questions or anything, leave some comments below. I would love to hear what you think. See you in the next one.